This is the first podcast of Workaround. Welcome, I have two guests. Alain, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Alain. I'm a community leader in a village in Western Africa, in Ghana. And I'm very excited that our community in Sakuba village is going to work together with Workaround and that we strengthen each other as sister communities.
Thank you very much. Yilmaz, our second guest here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. My name is Jonas. I'm a local from Amsterdam. And I'm just a student who likes building communities, many interests. And I played with cryptocurrencies. And that's pretty much it.
All right, so I brought you guys here for a discussion about community building because it seems like the two things that you guys share in common is community building. Perhaps I'll start with you, Alain. Tell us a little bit about what is to you.
Okay. For me, community is all about people and all about people showing up. And in my fantasy, humans have two basic needs. One is to belong to, and second is to contribute to a group. So a community is a group of people who show up as human beings with everything that is there, emotions, thoughts, fears, joys, and to meet each other as a human being, from human being to human being, and do things together from that space of meeting from one human to another, where both or more want to belong and to contribute, and helping each other in achieving that and becoming more human and achieving the things that people want to do together in collaboration and co-creation.
Thank you, Alain. Yilmaz, do you have anything to add on that? Or would you like to start with your own definition of community?
I think people are all connected, but we don't realize how much we are. Especially with technology, there's a framework for connectiveness, but people need to be connected from their hearts, and we need to realize that, and we need to trust each other and help each other grow.
I had a thought about community. 2 days ago, I was at an event, an iftar dinner. I was invited for an iftar dinner. If you don't know what that is, basically the Muslim, they break their fast and they come together and have food together. I was invited to join along. And when I was at the event, I feel very welcomed. And there was a vibe where everyone is just freely talking to each other. It's a nice vibe. And I recall the vibe that I had 2 weeks ago, where I was also at the same place, but it had a different vibe with different people. And I was trying to figure out what was the difference that made that vibe. And I learned it's because in the iftar dinner, everyone had a space to contribute, had a space to put themselves out there. Like everyone is contributing something in the form of food or dinner or something. And as a result of that, everyone come with an open mind. And that creates a vibe that is so welcoming compared to the vibe 2 weeks ago where it was organized by a third party and everyone was just there. Everyone has no sense of ownership. That was not community. That was community to me. So a community is a place where there's a place for you to have ownership, to contribute. That's where you feel like you're part of a community. So that will define what community is to me. It feels like a team, like a startup. I have a startup of 3-4 people here, and we are a community because all of us have a space to contribute and to feel ownership.
Can I ask you something?
Oh yes, sir, sure.
Because I'm really positive and inspired by what you're saying. You are setting up Workaround as a community. What is important for you as a community leader for Workaround to become a community?
What is important to me as a community leader is I express myself and show what is possible. Because humans, they don't like to be told. They like to see and they like to imitate. It's easier for them to imitate. So my role as a community leader is to show, is to express myself, what I say. And in that way, it will spread. That's the most effective way that this body can do. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
I also think about ownership because the big companies like Facebook, Twitter, they own your information. You give them information and they do things with it, but you don't own anything. You're not contributing to the success of a company. It doesn't give you anything back except those few things, few products, but nothing more. I think to build a community, you need to share. Also, if you share ownership, people will help you because they feel they are listened to and they feel welcomed. Like They would gladly give their information or help you build something because they feel ownership. And I think that's like really important for a community. You know?
I can relate to what you're saying. To give one example, today we have a funeral in Sakuba because one of the women leaders from the Palia Women Association has deceased. And all people are poor in terms that they don't have much money. So together we organize the funeral and everybody contributes little money so that together we can organize the funeral. And also what you are saying, I can relate to. If you have an office building together and you sit together, you are not a community. If you are a team and working together, you are not a community. A community for me really is people showing up as human beings and people creating something together, togetherness and belonging. And then something emerges between the people. It is like an energy field that you can step into and that you can tap into, and that is pure intelligence. So if people are, I wanted to say submissive, but if they are really showing up as human beings from the intention of belonging and from the intention of wanting to contribute, you create this collective intelligence that is larger than the sum of the individual people who together form the community. And that is a very big difference between a team or a shared working place in relationship to what we are building here as a community and what we have in Sakuba as a community.
Yeah, that's true. Because let's say you see someone on the street and you say, "Hey, let's build something," and then he says, "Okay, let's build something, but it's mine. I'm not going to share anything." He will not help you in any way. So you want to build something with other people, but you don't want to share what you built. That doesn't work. It's okay. I want to build something, so that's the end goal. Okay, how to achieve this end goal? You need shared decision making also. And also with like cryptocurrencies and this the new technology of decentralization, this gives us an opportunity to finally make a system that's decentralized, that respects all people, with decentralized voting and ownership. That's what in NFTs. When you buy it, you buy a piece of the company. When the company grows, your investment grows.
To be honest, I'm a little bit more skeptical about IT and how it's being used. IT doesn't build community, it's people that do. Maybe one example. We organize Deepalia Women's Association is a community of 1,000 women, but 1,000 women as a collective is too large to operate as such as a whole community. So we organize in smaller particles. And our particles are groups of, and that's also in alignment with the tradition, how the women are organized in their villages. They are organized in groups of 20 that help each other. Also in the shea butter production center that we have, which is a large factory where the women make shea butter, we organize the women in groups of 20. They make collective decisions. So there is a structure, there is a chair, a secretary, a treasurer. Decisions are made by the collective as a whole. And there was this one moment that we really had to make a tough decision about contracts, about how payments were made, and about how we would together pay for certain facilities. And the group of 20 women were discussing, and you saw 20 individual women who are bringing in their personal opinion. And some said we have to give up some of our money because it is good for us all. Others were completely against it and they said, no, we are not going to do that because we already have so little. We must organize it in a different way. And all the time, the chair and the secretary and the treasurer were holding space. They were allowing everything to happen in the conversation. And that sometimes I was wondering if they were really having a fight with each other because voices were really raised loud and there really was in my fantasy, a dispute. And at a certain moment, the leader of the group who was holding space for the conversation expressed herself in service of the collective, saying what might have been best for the collective. And because she was holding space for the whole group, And because she was expressing not her personal view, but really trying to sense what is in the middle and where is mutual agreement in the group and what is best for the group, she expressed not her personal view, but basically a summary of the whole process of dispute and conversation, and she expressed somehow, you can say, from the field that was created by the collective, the community field. She expressed what is best for the community. And at that moment, something magic happened. I still get goosebumps when I start talking, because you saw that every woman, also the one who were against it, felt that this was the best thing for the group to do. And then all 20, they nodded their head and they said, and then the decision was made. And also the women who actually in the beginning were completely against it, it was also their decision. So that is also, community is also about space holding and creating a larger intelligence in the group that is larger than the sum of the individuals. And it's also accepting for each individual, genuinely accepting that the group decision that has been made, the community decision that has been made, is also my decision. And in my fantasy, Westerners can learn a lot because everybody here often has pocket vetoes. They say yes, but in the heart it's still no. And that is so powerful that if we make a decision, and I was against it in the beginning, but we have made a decision as a community, it is also my decision. And the advantage is maybe that ego with women and men in rural Africa is less complex developed than it is here, because I see that women and men in West Africa who I work with who cannot speak English and cannot read and write, far more intelligent in that perspective than a highly educated Westerner who somehow allows ego to block the collective field and prevents people from really step in as a human being in full to enter that space of wisdom and enter that space of collectiveness.
Yeah, I also thought about that a few months ago. It's about like democracy. It's not just only choosing a side, but also respecting what people want. Like let's say 60% chose for B, and then you chose for A, but you need to be happy because this is what the whole country wants. How do you think people will see it is for the collective good? How does it arise? Especially with a larger group, let's say the Netherlands or the whole world. How do you give this feeling to people?
In my fantasy, you already gave the answer. Just a few minutes ago, you said connection by the heart. The mind can obstruct and the mind can create separation. The heart is always connected. So you will know if you are connected with your heart, and if you allow your heart to open and speak, you can feel in your body whether it is good for the whole or not. And you can also feel your personal resistance, and then it becomes a conscious choice. Do I choose to follow my personal resistance, or do I choose to follow what I sense in the collective as mutuality, communion?
You're right. The people in rural Africa or people who we see as less privileged are far more intelligent in being able to see the collective than we are, because we're so used to thinking for ourselves that we find it a huge connected load in our head to think about the collective. It's so much easier to think about ourselves, and we have been doing this since we were a kid. So it is very difficult.
And our whole education system is based on the individual. And we have, in my fantasy at least, those two elements: the desire to belong, communion, and the desire to contribute, express. So it is finding a balance, and most often that is done unconsciously. They are like two legs. You have two legs and you walk with both. And in the West, we tend to walk on the left leg, express self and individual expression and individual progress and growth, where in the genes of traditional Africa, it is actually the other leg is far more important. Community is far more important than the individual. And in my fantasy, you need both. And it is a whole process to create that in a collective, it also requires a certain level of consciousness. If you are more on individual expression and you want to become more communal about my own preferences, my own rejections, my own fears, my own desires, and my own ego. If you are traditional African, where it is so normal to be in communion, it is maybe a little bit the other way around, to learn that a community can only be a community if individuals show up as human beings.
I think your life in Africa, in rural Africa, depends on the community around you, right? Like you buy groceries around you, you make money around, you get paid around your village. But here in the city like Amsterdam, the circle where you can make your living is so much bigger. And as a result of that, there's no value in thinking communal.
Yeah, but for instance, organizing a funeral, it is not only the practical sense that nobody has money, that we organize it as a collective. Somebody in our community has died, and together as a community, we are mourning for a sister. And that is also togetherness. And here, at least in the context that I grew up here in the Netherlands, it is if somebody dies, the family organizes the funeral, often with insurance, and other people show up to express their sadness for the loss, and then that is it. Also, those community organizes in a different way, and I don't know. Here so much is on the individual, and your reward is individual. In Africa, we share food, we share money, and we make sure that everybody who is part of the community is included. Life conditions are much harsher, and money is scarce, but it is not about money. It is absolutely a mentality.
Yeah, I think making a living is not enough. Like, in the West, we are individuals. We have a lot of competition, so we learn to be independent. I think this is like part of the journey. It's not only a communal. We were communal a few thousand years ago, same as in Africa. But people learn to be individuals so they could make a living, and eventually we will learn to combine this living to make something larger. I think the world becomes like more individual and then more communal, and then again individual. And every time we go communal, we share those things we learned as individuals. Let's say there's competition in power, and if there's too much competition, it's unhealthy. So we learn to combine the power and make a larger community. And in this community, everything is equal. But now arises individualism. People want to make money. It's what capitalism. People compete, and eventually it will be unhealthy competition. And I think we will share this knowledge we learned. Like we have certain better things in the West than in Africa, more money, more food. And I think it's a progression. It's not only we don't have to think about communal and individual and that's it. It's a road. It goes from communal to individualism. You need the individualism to have competition to grow.
No, to relate to that, I work with spirodynamics, which is an evolutionary theory and change approach. And I like the metaphor of the two legs and the distinction between me and express self and we to commit myself. It's a dance, and you have two legs to do the dance. Or I could also say it is like taking a bath. If you only put hot water in the bath, it's too hot. If you only put cold water in the bath, it's too cold. So you mix, you put hot and cold in. And at a certain moment it becomes colder, and for some people too cold, and then you put hot water in again. And the same is with that dynamics between me and expressing myself and we committing myself to the larger whole. They seem to be contradictory, but they're only contradictory in our minds. And if we make it a dance between me and we, that would be a step closer to communion and community. And the either or in my fantasy is an and. And the only way it can be an and is if people really show up as human beings. And human beings are more than talking heads and bright minds.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think let's take a break. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah.